22 years old. First real paycheck, $2,300. Gone in 11 days. Not because you blew it on something stupid, not because you were reckless or irresponsible or didn't care, but because nobody ever sat you down and explained that your 20s are not a waiting room. They are the most financially important decade of your entire life, and most people spend them completely backwards. Here is what actually happens. You spend that decade buying things that disappear. Nights out you barely remember. Clothes that sit in the back of a closet. A car that costs you more every single month than it is worth. Subscriptions draining your account quietly while you sleep. And then you hit 30 and you look around and wonder where it all went. Not just the money, the time, the decade where the math was working in your favor and you didn't even know it. Because here is the thing that changes everything when you finally understand it. Money at 22 is not worth the same as money at 32 or 42. It is worth dramatically more. Every dollar you put to work at 22 has 45 years to compound. Every dollar you put to work at 32 has 35 years. That 10-year difference is not 10% less wealth at the end. It is the difference between financial freedom and financial anxiety for the rest of your life. The purchases you make right now will determine the entire shape of your financial future. Not the big dramatic decisions, not the lottery tickets or the crypto bets or the lucky breaks. The quiet, boring, specific things you choose to spend money on in the next few years. There are 7 of them. And most people never buy a single one. My name is Miller, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and the 7 decisions that separate the people who build real wealth from the people who spend their entire lives wondering why they never get ahead. Hit that subscribe button because we do this every couple of days. And stay with me because by the end of this video, you are going to have a completely different understanding of what your money is actually capable of when you stop spending it on things that disappear and start spending it on things that multiply. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Meet the Walkers. Jake and Sarah, 24 years old when they got married. Combined income of $68,000 a year. Not rich, not even close. But they made 7 specific purchases in their 20s that most people never make. Today, Jake is 39. Their net worth is $1,100,000. They have no debt except a mortgage with 14 years left. Sarah woke up one morning and realized she did not have to go to work unless she wanted to. That morning changed everything about how she understood the decisions she had made 15 years earlier. Their neighbors, the Parkers, same age, same city, same industry, combined income of $74,000 a year when they started out, more than the Walkers, better salaries, newer apartment, nicer cars. Today their net worth is $89,000, mostly home equity, almost nothing invested. David Parker works 60 hours a week at a job he has hated for 6 years because he cannot afford to leave it. Same city, same decade, similar incomes. The gap between them is not luck. It is not a better job or a smarter investment or a windfall nobody else got. It is 7 purchases made in their 20s. That most people look at and think are optional, they are not optional. They are the whole game. Purchase number 1. And this one surprises people because it does not feel like an investment when you make it. Buy a skill that makes you worth more per hour than your current job pays you. Here's what I mean. Jake Walker spent $800 at 23 on a course that taught him data analysis. Not because he wanted to become a data analyst, because he wanted to understand numbers better than the people around him at work. Within 18 months, he had been promoted twice. His salary went from $31,000 to $47,000. That $800 investment returned over $16,000 in additional annual income in less than 2 years. The Parkers spent the same $800 that year on a weekend trip, which they still talk about fondly, and which returned exactly $0. This is the mathematics of skill investment in your 20s. Your brain at 22 is more adaptable than it will ever be again. The speed at which you can absorb new information and build new capabilities right now is at its absolute peak. And most people spend that window watching things instead of learning things. A $20 book can change the trajectory of your career if it teaches you something the people around you do not know. A $200 course can give you a skill that adds thousands to your annual income. A $500 workshop can put you in a room with people who are 10 years ahead of where you are and show you exactly what they wish they had known at your age. The return on education is not guaranteed, but the cost of not investing in yourself is certain. It is the permanent ceiling of whatever you are worth right now. Purchase number 2 is the one that most people in their 20s understand intellectually, and almost nobody actually does. Start investing automatically. Before you see the money, specifically open a Roth IRA and set up an automatic contribution the same day your paycheck hits. Not a big number, not a number that requires sacrifice or willpower, a number small enough that you genuinely will not miss it. Here is the math that changes everything when you actually sit with it. $200 a month invested in a low-cost index fund starting at age 22, growing at the historical average of roughly 8% annually, becomes $702,000 by age 62. $200 a month, less than $7 a day, over $700,000. If you wait until 32 to start that exact same investment, same amount, same return, you end up with $330,000 instead. Waiting 10 years cost you $372,000. Read that again. 10 years of waiting. $372,000 gone. Not because you spent it, because you waited. This is what the Walkers understood at 23 that the Parkers did not understand until it was too late to fully fix. Sarah Walker set up a $50 automatic transfer to her Roth IRA the month she got her first real job. $50. She never saw it leave. Her brain adjusted to living without it within 2 pay cycles. By 28, she had increased it to $200 a month. By 32, it was $400. The habit was already built. The account was already growing. The early years of compounding had already started long before the Parkers made their first contribution. David Parker always meant to start investing, but there was always something more urgent. The car needed work. They wanted a vacation. The apartment needed new furniture. There was always a reason to wait one more month. One more month became one more year, became a decade he cannot buy back at any price. The Roth IRA specifically matters because every dollar of growth is tax-free, not tax-deferred, tax-free. When you pull that money out in retirement, every cent of the growth that happened over 40 years belongs entirely to you. The government does not touch it. You pay taxes on the money going in when you are young and earning less, and the decades of growth come out completely clean. This is not complicated. It is not exciting. It will not give you anything impressive to say at dinner. But it is one of the most powerful financial decisions available to anyone at this stage of life, and most people never do it. Purchase number 3 is the one that gets the most pushback. Because it sounds irresponsible on the surface. Buy a plane ticket. Not to post on social media. Not to prove something to people who do not care. But to deliberately put yourself in an environment where everything you think you know about money, success, and what a good life looks like gets completely disrupted. Here is what travel actually buys you at this stage of life that you cannot get any other way. It buys you perspective on your own assumptions. It buys you the experience of solving real problems in unfamiliar environments with limited resources. It builds a kind of confidence that comes from figuring things out when you cannot fall back on everything familiar. And occasionally, if you are paying attention, it puts you in contact with people who are building things you want to build in industries you want to be in, who you would never have encountered staying in your own city. The key word is strategic. I am not telling you to blow your emergency fund on a 5-star resort. I am telling you to spend a week somewhere genuinely different once a year, budget it in advance, and pay for it with travel rewards, points wherever possible. Use a no-fee travel credit card for your normal monthly expenses. Pay the full balance every single month without exception. Never carry a balance. Collect the points. Use them to travel for free or close to it. This approach also builds your credit score, which becomes critically important when you are ready to buy real estate. The Walkers took one international trip every 18 months throughout their 20s. Budget flights, modest accommodation, never more than $1,500 total out of pocket. They treated it as an annual investment in perspective, not a luxury, an investment. The Parkers took more expensive trips more often, beautiful vacations, great memories, zero financial return, and a credit card balance that took 8 months to pay off after each one. Same desire to experience the world. Completely different approach. Completely different financial outcome. Purchase number 4 is the one the personal finance industry spends almost no time on, because there is not much money to be made telling people to buy it. Buy reliable, boring, cheap transportation. And drive it until it stops running. I know, you have heard this before. But I do not think most people have done the full math on what a car payment at this stage of life actually costs. Not just the payment itself. The complete compounded cost of that single decision over time. Here is the number that should make you put down whatever you are drinking. The average new car payment in America right now is over $700 a month. If you invest $700 a month instead of making that payment, at 8% annual returns over 30 years, you accumulate over $1 million. One decision. $1 million difference. The same monthly number going to 2 completely different destinations. The Parkers financed a $28,000 SUV at 25. The monthly payment was $580 for 60 months. By the time they paid it off, it had cost them over $34,000, including interest, and it was worth $11,000. They immediately financed another one. The Walkers bought a 7-year-old Honda with 90,000 miles on it for $8,000 cash at 24. They drove it for 9 years. It never cost them more than $1,000 in any single year of repairs. Every month that the Parkers made a car payment, the Walkers directed that same amount into their investment accounts instead. 9 years of that single difference. You already know what happened to their net worths. The car was a significant part of why. Purchase number 5 is the one that scares people the most, because it feels impossibly large when your account balance is $400. Buy real estate as early as you possibly can. Not because property values always go up, not because it is always the right move in every market, but because of something almost nobody explains correctly when they talk about real estate at this stage of life. Leverage. When you buy a property with a 10% down payment, you control 100% of an appreciating asset with 10% of its value. If that property appreciates by 5% in a year, you did not make 5% on your money. You made 50% on your down payment. Because you only put in 10 cents of every dollar the asset is worth. There is no other legal investment vehicle available to ordinary people that allows this kind of leverage on an asset that historically appreciates, generates income if you rent part of it, and provides housing at the same time. The Walkers bought a small duplex at 26. They lived in one unit. They rented the other. The rental income covered 60% of their mortgage. They were living for 40% of what comparable renting would have cost them, and they were building equity every single month. When they sold 7 years later, they walked away with $94,000 in profit that went directly into their next investment. That profit did not require genius. It required one purchase, made at 26. With a down payment they had been saving for specifically since they were 23. The Parkers rented their entire 20s. Beautiful apartment, zero equity built. Every dollar they paid in rent is gone permanently. There is no asset, no return, no compounding, just receipts. I need to stop here, because this is the number I find most difficult to say out loud. And I want you to sit with it for a moment before we continue. At 39 years old, Jake Walker and David Parker both calculate their net worth for the first time in the same week. They have known each other since college, same school, same graduation year, same city, their entire adult lives. They started their careers within 6 months of each other, earning within $8,000 of the same annual salary. Jake Walker opens the spreadsheet. $1,112,000. The duplex equity. The index funds Sarah started at 23. The retirement accounts. The consulting income Jake built on the back of the skill investment he made at 23. David Parker does the same exercise. $89,000. Almost entirely home equity. His retirement account holds $22,000. He started contributing at 34. He has 2 car payments totaling $1,100 a month. He works 60 hours a week because he needs the overtime. $1,023,000 difference between two people who started in the same place. Now here is the number that makes this even harder to hear. The total amount the Parkers spent on car payments across their 20s and 30s, invested at 8% instead, would be worth $460,000 today. $460,000. Not spent on anything catastrophic, not lost in a bad investment. Spent on cars that are now worth nothing, on monthly payments that felt completely normal at the time because everyone around them was making the same ones. That is not a financial statistic. That is a version of David Parker's life that existed. A version where he is not working 60 hours a week at 40. A version where he had choices, and that version was available to him. He just did not know he was choosing against it every time he signed a car financing agreement. Purchase number 6 is the one that feels most optional at 22 and most obviously necessary at 42. Invest in your health, specifically and deliberately, as if it were a financial asset. Because it is. Here's how I want you to think about this. Your health is the engine that runs every other investment you make. Your career growth depends on your focus and energy, your ability to sustain consistent effort over years, make good decisions under pressure, and take advantage of opportunities when they appear depends entirely on the physical and mental condition you maintain. The people who build serious wealth over decades are not necessarily the smartest or most talented. They are the people who can sustain consistent effort for a long time without breaking down. That is a health outcome as much as a character outcome, a gym membership you actually use, food that gives you energy instead of draining it, sleep that you protect as seriously as you protect your investment contributions. These are not luxuries. They are the infrastructure everything else runs on. The hidden cost of poor health in your 20s is not primarily medical bills. It is the compounding cost of operating at 70% capacity for years when you should be running at full capacity. The decisions you make badly when you are exhausted. The opportunities you cannot take advantage of because you do not have the energy. The years you lose to preventable problems that started as ignored symptoms at 23. Treat your health like a financial asset, because the returns compound in exactly the same way. Purchase number 7, the one that ties everything together. Buy assets that generate income while you sleep. Not as a vague idea. As a specific concrete purchase you make before lifestyle inflation consumes every raise you ever receive. In your 20s, before the mortgage and the kids and the obligations stack up into a structure that feels impossible to modify, you have a window. A window where a relatively small amount of money allocated to income-producing assets can grow into something that permanently changes the structure of your financial life. Index funds generating dividends, a rental property producing monthly income, a skill that generates consulting revenue without requiring your presence every hour. Each of these starts with a single purchase, and each of them compounds not just financially, but in terms of how you think about money, work, and time. The Walkers have 3 income streams today that do not require either of them to be physically present. The duplex, now fully paid off, generates $2,200 a month from both units. The index fund portfolio Sarah started at 23 generates dividends that automatically reinvest. And the consulting work Jake built on the skill he purchased at 23 generates income that covers their family's annual travel without touching their core investments. None of that required genius. None required a windfall. Each one started with a single specific purchase in their 20s. 3 purchases, 3 income streams, 1 family at 39 with actual freedom. Here is what I want you to take away from today. Your 20s are not a waiting room. They are not a decade you get to spend freely before the serious part starts. They are the decade where the math is most powerfully in your favor, where the smallest decisions have the longest time to multiply, where a $50 monthly investment and a 7-year-old Honda and 1 course on data analysis can become, 15 years later, a net worth over $1 million and a life built on choices instead of obligations. The 7 purchases we talked about today are not about deprivation. They are not about being cheap or refusing to enjoy your life. They are about understanding something David Parker is only beginning to understand at 39. The things that feel like sacrifices at 22 are not sacrifices. They are investments in a version of yourself that has options. Real options. Not the choice between 2 jobs you do not love. Not the decision to stay in a city you have outgrown because you cannot afford to walk away from the mortgage. Actual freedom. The kind where you wake up and decide what to do with your day instead of what you have to do to cover the bills. The 7 purchases do not just build wealth. They build the version of you that knows how to make better decisions every year. Each one compounds financially. Each one compounds personally. The skill investment makes you more valuable. The investment habit changes how you think about money. The real estate teaches you to see leverage where other people see only risk. You do not need to do all 7 this month. You need to do 1, the one that is most relevant to where you are right now, before you close this video, not next month, not when things settle down. Now, with what you have, at the level you are at. The Walkers did not start with everything figured out. They started with $50 a month and a used car and a willingness to make 1 good decision at a time. Your future self is not asking you to be perfect, just to start. And if this video gave you something real, hit that subscribe button. Because this is exactly what we do here. Every couple of days, we pull back the curtain on the financial decisions that are quietly shaping your life so you can see them clearly and make better ones. No fluff, no shortcuts, just honest conversations about money that most people are too uncomfortable to have. You found this channel for a reason. The next one might change everything.